let's keep talking about Avery. Yeah, let's keep talking till he's set free. Oh, you just listen, I think you'll see why it matters. It really matters. I could go on listing things off, any more things. I just keep on singing these songs till Avery's freedom rings. I said it matters. It really does. I know it matters. This could be you. I said it matters. This could be me. I said it matters. Work with KZ. I said it matters.
Welcome to 80 More Things, where we go beyond making a murderer and discuss questionable details of the Teresa Halbach murder case. My name is Fen. I am FenMN on Twitter. There's a link in the show notes to my Twitter page. You're probably wondering why this podcast is called 80 More Things. I'll explain. But before I begin, I want to say if you haven't watched Making a Murderer on Netflix, you'll want to watch both seasons before joining us here, or a lot of this won't make any sense to you. Plus, spoiler alert, spoilers ahead. Starting now, this is your last warning. Back in March of 2019, I was listening to Stacy Seabrook's song, It Really Matters, which you just heard a piece of at the top of the show. The song is about how we need to keep talking about this case because if we stop talking about it, two innocent men, Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey, will just someday die in prison for a crime that they did not commit. Stacy is listing off all of the things that are questionable about this case, like the ridiculous sweat DNA theory and a bunch of other stuff. And if you haven't listened to the whole song, please do. I'm going to play it at the end of this podcast, or you can always look up Stacy Seabrook, It Really Matters on YouTube. And I'll leave a link to that in the show notes as well. Anyway, I got to the part of the song where he sings, I could go on listing things off, 80 more things. And I thought, are there really that many things? If I thought about it, could I really come up with 80 more things? Well, we were 82 days away from the Justice Rally in Manitowoc, so I decided that I thought I really could come up with 80 more things, and that I would just tweet one thing every day until the rally. So that's what I did, and it turns out it wasn't really that hard to come up with 80 things, and there were more things that I didn't even get to. So if you want to see the 80 days of 80 more things, just search the hashtag 80 more things on Twitter. Now, I didn't come up with all of these things on my own. There is a huge community of supporters and researchers out there who've been discussing this case. They've been requesting case files and documents. They've been looking over everything with a fine-tooth comb. And this is where the 80 things came from. YouTubers, Redditors, Facebookers, lawyers, and all of these things are accessible to me via the internet. And it goes so far beyond what was revealed in Making a Murderer, and some of the things they have discovered are astonishing. So my goal with this podcast is to keep this conversation going and hopefully provide a platform where people can talk about the discoveries they've made and the theories that they've crafted, the discussions they've been having, and their expectations for the future. So on this journey with me will be my co-host, Julie Pompom. She is Juju Pompom on Twitter, and I'll put a link to her Twitter in the show notes as well. And she's here with me now, virtually at least. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
Hello. First of all,
Hello.
I want to thank you so much for agreeing to host this podcast with me.
I want to thank you for having me and for allowing me to be here with you on this journey. I'm really excited about this project.
Me too. And there's so much to talk about. And I think for this episode, this is the introductory episode. And I think what we're going to do is just the two of us talk about how we got interested in this case. What is it that got us interested? And we've both been interested in it for quite a while now. So what is it that piqued your interest about the Teresa Halbach murder case?
Well, I had seen some people here and there on my timeline on Facebook talking about how they had watched Making a Murderer when it first came out on Netflix. And it was just a few people, but I saw that they were talking about it and I had never heard of it. And at first, I just sort of, scrolled past it and didn't really pay much attention to it. But then I saw more people talking about it and I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a shot the next time I'm bored and don't have anything to do. And so this one weekend, I was sitting on the couch and the kids were in the living room playing with their Legos or whatever. And I was scrolling through Netflix trying to find something to watch. And that kept coming up in my search. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn it on and I'm just going to watch it. And if I don't like it, I'll turn it off. I turned it on and I only stopped watching it to eat and sleep the rest of the weekend. Like, I could not stop watching it. It had my full undivided attention. And when I started watching it, I had never heard of the case. I didn't know anything about it. And I hadn't actually seen any spoilers when I had seen it on Facebook. So I didn't even know what to expect. I thought that the end of it was going to be them getting out of prison because they didn't actually have any valid evidence and that, it was all ridiculous and they found who actually really did it and this was a travesty and now they're free. Yay, happy ending. Boy, was I disappointed when I got to the end, and that is not what happens. After the last episode, I was devastated. I mean, as a viewer, as much as a watcher can be, as a viewer can be, I was like, what? How is that even possible? And so for about a week after that, I was just searching everywhere I could find, trying to find any information that had happened in between, the trial and when it first came out. I watched it in January after it came out. And so I tried to find everything I could find. And, at the time there were a lot of things that were available that I can't find anymore, but I still didn't find, there were a lot of things that I didn't find. And I sort of came to a stopping point because I couldn't really find much else. And I sort of stopped after that. And every so often I would go back and look to see if there were any updates in the case and things like that. But then Making a Murderer 2 came out and I've been completely immersed in it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So, to make a short story long.
Similar to you, I also thought that the ending would be clearing Stephen's name. And I had some difficulty actually getting through episode 4. I couldn't, my husband at the end of episode 3 and the beginning of episode 4, Dave, he kept stopping it because we were sitting on the couch and I was on my side, he was on his, and I was just so fidgety. I just couldn't sit still. It was so upsetting to watch the whole interaction between Michael O'Kelly and Brendan Dassey that I just couldn't handle it. I just couldn't. And I was so upset and I would just cry and cry. And Dave just was so good to me. He kept stopping it and saying, "Are you okay?" Making sure I was okay to continue. And it actually took us several days to watch those 2 episodes in particular. It was very, very difficult. And I think from then on, that's what pulled me in is Brendan's plight, much more so even than Stephen's. And of course, I feel for Stephen. I do believe he's innocent. I believe Brendan is obviously innocent. But it was Brendan that pulled me in more than anything. And after it was over and I went to all the Facebook groups and I signed up for pretty much every Facebook group there is. There are a lot of them. Anybody that's looked will see that there are so many. And I think the community has fractured a little bit over time. So there are a lot of different factions of the community, I guess, but for the most part, everybody does believe that they're innocent, at least in the groups that I'm in. There are some guilter groups as well. I lost my train of thought.
Choo choo. Let's get back on the truth train.
That's what pulled me in. I went to the Facebook groups, and then I heard the news that Brendan's conviction had been overturned, and I was so happy. And then I heard that the appeal had been, or the overturning had been upheld by, in the appellate court. And I was so excited for Brendan that he was going to be getting out of prison. And then I heard that, unbelievably, they had an en-banc hearing scheduled, and then the news came that they had sided with the state and that Brendan was, in fact, not going to be getting out of prison. And it was just devastating. It's absolutely devastating. And so we were holding out, my husband and I were holding out hope for the Supreme Court. And we're just waiting until July. I don't remember what the date was, but it was in July. And we're just waiting and waiting for the date to come. And we thought, this is going to be it. This is going to be the day, finally. Mm-hmm. And it was just devastating that all we got was the list with his name on it that had been denied, that they denied or declined to hear the case, which is a shame because they had a real opportunity to make some very significant and much needed changes to how we treat youth in the justice system. And they chose to just turn a blind eye and ignore it. And that was devastating, absolutely devastating. So it was very difficult for me to watch season 2.
Right. Oh, yeah. See, I didn't know. And when I started season 2, there was a lot I didn't know because I just Googled stuff to find out what was going on in between the two, releases of Making a Murderer. And I didn't know, I wasn't a member of any of the Facebook groups. I don't think I had any idea what Reddit even was. I had a Twitter, but I wasn't I didn't really know very much about social media and this community and how to get involved in it. I didn't know any of that stuff. So, you were in all of the Facebook groups and you saw all of the people in this community talking about it. And so you knew all of that. And I didn't know any of that. So when I started season 2, I only knew I guess you could call it season 2, but Making a Murderer 2. I only knew what I had seen in Google. I knew that Stephen had a new attorney. I knew that she had stuff that she was looking into, and she was very confident that she was going to be able to get him out of prison and get his conviction overturned. And that's about all I knew. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about Brendan's appeal. I didn't know about his conviction being overturned. For some reason, that just didn't come up when I searched in Google. And then when I watched it, I couldn't not get more involved. I couldn't. Mm-hmm. It was so much more captivating. It sucked me in, and I couldn't walk away from that. And I felt more for Brendan after watching Making a Murderer 2. Not that I didn't feel for him the first time. I just connected with his situation and his experience a lot more watching Making a Murderer 2. Mm-hmm. And it affected me a lot, especially, like you said, his conviction getting overturned and then it getting upheld and then them appealing it again and it being reversed and then the Supreme Court and then them not seeing it. That roller coaster did a number on my emotions. I cannot fathom how it must have felt to Brendan. I can't imagine.
Or his family.
Or his family too, yeah. Especially. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. And I was even more outraged than I was after the first one because I didn't understand how they could continue to do this. when it is so obvious to so many people and anybody with common sense, in my mind, that all of this is a complete farce. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It really is. And if you look at the hashtag 80 more things, you'll see how many things. It's not just, one or two little things. And there's a typo here and there's a typo there. But you know what? There are so many typos that after a while, it's like, is it really just a typo?
Quote unquote typo.
Exactly. So at a certain point, it turns the corner to where you can see that this has to be deliberate. There's no way around it. It just has to be. There's too much. It's overwhelming how much there is. And as we go along in this podcast, we're going to have people from the community coming to talk to us about the things that they've discovered. A lot of people in the community have a passion for a particular topic. It seems like certain people develop certain passions for particular egregious acts that have been perpetrated. What I'm trying to say.
Yes,
but there are certain topics where someone will discover something wonky and they'll start pulling on that thread and they'll FOIA the documents and they'll start looking, and it takes them further and further down this rabbit hole. Well, I'm hoping to get some of those people from the community to come and talk to us about what they've discovered, because there's a lot of stuff I don't know about this case. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that many people listening to this podcast, if anyone's listening, that don't know about this case. There's so much that it's really difficult for me to get my head around all of it. There's so much. And I did the 80 more things. I put them all into tweets every day, but that doesn't mean I know everything there is to know about each of those 80 things, not by a long shot. There's so much information out there that I would really like to give people a voice to talk about what they've found. And that's what this podcast is about.
I think it's a brilliant idea. And I love that there are so many people in this community that, like you said, they grasp onto one topic or one anomaly or one, subject or area situation that they find to be particularly, interesting or confusing or enraging, and they look into it more. And it just enables the community as a whole to find things that wouldn't be found otherwise. I mean, right now, Stephen has Kathleen, and she is great at what she does. And yes, she has assistants and she has people who work for her, but we are a community of like 100,000 or something people, or more. I don't even know how many people are in this community. She's not 100,000 people.
Right.
So 100,000, 200,000 people are going to be able to find things and look at things that, one person may not see, and then bring it up, and then everybody knows this information. And I think it's really important to have, it's not too many cooks in the kitchen. The more hands you have, the better. It takes a village, right?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And people can build on each other's discoveries as well, which is very helpful.
Exactly.
Speaking of the community, right before Rally this year, we had a really awesome thing happen, which was Mammothon. We did this marathon for 48 hours over a weekend, which was, I think I slept like 1 hour the entire weekend. And the community really came together, and it was so awesome. We had Eric Jose on Making a Murderer. We had Tracy Strunzi, Paul Capaldi, Ali Apperson, and everybody had guests. They switched off, from one. They did 2-hour segments? Is that what it was? I can't even remember.
I think so. Yeah, they did. They each did 2-hour segments.
And
no, it was 4 hours.
It was 4 hour. I think they were going to do 2 hour, and then they switched it to 4 because they were going 48 hours instead of 24 hours. Yeah. How did it came about? Because
we were guests on Ali Apperson's channel. She was live, and we, the ladies of Making
Glow
a Murderer, Glow Ma'am.
The glorious ladies.
Glorious ladies
of
Making a Moment, Making a Murderer. Yeah, as Eric Jose coined that phrase for us. We were all on, and we were live all night long. Like, we started in the early evening and we were there until the next morning.
Right.
And Tracy came up with this idea. She thought, what if we did this as a fundraiser? Because obviously we can do it. We just did it all night long, and we should do it as a fundraiser and to raise awareness about the case and talk about the case before the rally, so that it'll raise awareness and raise interest to get more people at the rally and to get people talking about it. Because that's the thing. The more you talk about it, the more people know about it, and everybody is going to be more involved. And that's what we need, is we need more participation and more talking about it in order to make change.
Right.
And so that's what we did. So for 48 hours, it was originally going to be 24 hours, but then it changed to 48 hours. And each of the 4 hosts had special guests, and they talked about different things. And we talked about things having to do with the case, and we talked about other things that were just, justice system related.
Right.
Like, for example, Tracy had an interview with her daughter, who is in the field of death investigation, which it wasn't specifically about this case, but it was just that in general, because that topic is, in this case, does have, death investigation in it, or it should have. And there were interviews with authors and interviews with other people who are in the community, and
people from Reddit
who had found, investigated, and FOIA'd all kinds of different documents and information, and found a lot of things originally, and they came on to talk about those things. And so I think it was wonderful. We were able to raise a lot of money for the guys.
Yes.
And they were just ecstatic about that, because they were able to use that, or they're still able to use it. They still have,
Yes. I think we ended up raising at least 4 times the amount we were hoping for initially.
Right.
5 times, actually.
Our original goal was $2,000, and some of us thought that was
the original goal, I think, was 1,000.
Was it?
Yes. And then right before we started, I think I'm pretty sure it was you that said, we should just go all out and make our goal 2,000.
Right.
It's like, why not? Sure.
Why not? Sure. If we don't reach it, we don't reach it, but let's do 2,000. Right. And then after, the first couple of hours, we were like, you know what? Let's just change it to 4,000.
Yep.
And we ended up raising over $5,000.
Yeah, that is unbelievable and amazing.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It all went to Stephen and Brendan's canteens.
Yes, it did. It did.
Sadly, it's very expensive to be in prison in the United States. Everything costs money. It's ridiculous. And that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Right.
But
the event was great, and I learned a bunch of stuff that I didn't even know about the case.
I know, me too.
Yeah,
I learned a lot from your presentation as well, Julie. Your presentation was awesome.
Yes, my presentation on critical thinking. It was actually a class that I was taking at the time for college, and I just happened to mention it during a live chat, and Travis suggested, "Hey, you should do a thing on that for the Mammothon." I was like, you know what? That maybe I will. Yep. That's a good idea. And it ended up being a really good idea. It went over really well. So I was glad that I was able to contribute like that.
Yeah, me too.
It was a wonderful event, and I am really glad we did it. And I think that we spread a lot of awareness. I think it was a success because we provided a lot of information and a lot of education about the system in general and about the case to people who didn't necessarily know those things. And we have a link where you can go and you can watch the whole thing, the whole 48 hours of it.
Your snacks ready.
Get your snacks ready, right? But it's not live now, so at least you can pause it to get up.
That's true.
Sleep and take a shower and stuff,
right. Which is something we didn't get to do during.
We didn't get to do. I slept more than you did that weekend. I think I got 3 hours of sleep.
Oh wow!
yeah. So it was exhausting, but it was worth it. It was so much fun.
It was awesome.
It was really great. Yeah,
and
I'm really glad that we did it.
There will be a link to that in the show notes and also on the website 80morethings.com, so you can check it out. You should check it out.
You should. You definitely should.
So I guess that will wrap it up for our introductory episode of 80 More Things. How do you feel, Julie?
I feel great.
Me too. That's great. If you are out there and you have a topic that you want us to cover, or if you'd like to be a guest on a future episode of this podcast, visit our website at 80morethings.com and let us know what you want to talk about. While you're there, you can check out some of the links I've posted for the Center on Wrongful Convictions of Youth, the Innocence Project, workwithkz.com, and I've also linked to a petition to pass the Juvenile Interrogation and Protection Law in Wisconsin that will hopefully help protect future Brendan Dassies.
That needs to be everywhere, not just in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So until next time, take care.
Let's keep talking about Avery. Yeah, let's keep talking till he's set free. Oh, you just listen, I think you'll see why it matters. It really matters. Put aside the documentary, the state's version ludicrosy. All their claims so blatantly get torn to tatters. I say that matters. I bet you heard about Hood-Latch Sweat, but maybe you ain't heard this yet. 19 more times the DNA that was left anywhere else that day. I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters. An ex-boyfriend with a day planner page, and yet they did not investigate. And who knows why, and who can say why he was signed into the crime scene that day. I think that matters. I really do, I think it matters. How about that barrel that once was seized, but then returned to the Averys? The bones were found the next day, but not one photograph exists of where they lay. I think that matters. I really do, I say it matters. I could go on listing things off, 80 more things. I just keep on singing these songs till Avery's freedom rings. I said